Hi grade 7s, welcome to lesson 1, part 1. Today we will be going through topic 6, common fractions, and that is on page 76 in your textbook if you want to follow there. These notes are online, so you're welcome to print them. If you're able to, then you can just paste them into your workbook. However, if a printer is not available, please just write these notes in your book. It's not that much to write down, but it needs to be in your books, please. Alright, so fractions. This first section we are just going to go through the basics of fractions. Most of this you should already know, so it shouldn't be anything new at the moment. Okay, so it says, the format of a common fraction always stays the same. The numerator is always on top and the denominator is always at the bottom. So there we've got an example of a fraction, numerator always on top, denominator always at the bottom. It says here the numerator shows how many parts of the fraction we are including or looking at. Alright, the denominator shows how many parts the object is divided into. Now remember, these parts must be equal in size. Very important when you're talking about fractions. So if we look at this example, we've got a rectangle. And this rectangle is divided into 4 smaller rectangles. And you can see 3 of them have been shaded in. Now the question will say, write the fraction of the shaded or the unshaded parts, depending on what the question asks. So straight away we should know our denominator. And our denominator is 4 because there are 4 equal parts. Then if they asked for the shaded parts, there are 3 parts that are shaded. So the fraction of the shaded parts would be 3/4 or 3/4. If they asked for the fraction of the unshaded parts, we can see there's only one block that hasn't been colored in. So the fraction would be 1/4 or 1/4. So that's what's written over here. I've just added this in. You're welcome to add to your notes as we go along. Underneath this it says we can also use number lines to show how we count in fractions. Look at the below number lines using fractions. So these number lines just show you how we would count in a fraction or how our whole numbers would be divided into fractions. So if we look at the first one, we're working with eighths. So we know that this whole number would be divided into 8 equal parts. Alright? Then obviously we're going to count 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, all the way up until 8/8. And that then means we're talking about one whole number. The next one, our whole number is divided into 6 parts. So we're working with sixths. Again, we're going to count in sixths until we get 6/6, and that is equal to one whole number. And the same with quarters, thirds, and halves. I can give you any possible fraction, and straight away you should know that that just tells me how many pieces my whole number is divided into. So what I can do in a test, I can give you this number line and I can say fill in the missing number or numbers. So I could leave a few of them out and expect you to fill them in. And obviously when it passes 1, it becomes 1 1/8, 1 2/8, 1 3/8, up and up and up, all the way up for all of these number lines. All right. Then we're going to start talking about types of fractions. We talk about 3 main types of fractions. We've got proper fractions, improper fractions, and mixed numbers. Now, proper fraction, the first one, that is your most common type of fraction. So that is when the numerator is smaller than the denominator. Okay, so the number on top must be smaller. So for example, 3/4, 1/2, 6/7. You can give your own examples as well, as long as the numerator is smaller than the denominator. Then it's a proper fraction. We can then talk about an improper fraction. This is when the numerator is larger than the denominator. So they kind of just switched places. So the number on top must be bigger than the one at the bottom. So for example, we've got 3/2, 5/3, 20/4. And once again, you can come up with your own examples as long as the numerator is larger than the denominator. Then lastly, our mixed numbers. Now an improper fraction and a mixed number, they work together. Okay, so you'll see later on we're going to convert between these two fractions. So a mixed number is basically a fraction that consists of a whole number and a proper fraction. So 4 1/2, 5 5/7, you can say 3 1/4, you can say 8 1/3. It doesn't matter as long as you have one whole number and you have a proper fraction. Please take note, this cannot be an improper fraction because then it's not simplified enough. Okay, so those are your three types of common fractions. Like I said, we can convert between these two types of fractions, and that we will be doing in the next lesson, or part 2 of lesson 1, which will be uploaded straight after this.